Thank you, Paul. And now we'll hand over to Peter Taaffe from the Socialist Party.
Colleague Chair and comrades, I don't want to stab the Prime Minister in the back. I want to stab him in the front so I can see the expression on his face. That's not a junior doctor or a nurse or Mick Cash's railway workers or members of the FBU. That's a Tory MP who's speaking. I'll give you another. Andrew Bridgen, who I had the pleasure of debating with at the Oxford Union a couple of years ago. And when he was asked to sit next to me, he said, I'm not sitting there because he is the enemy. And he was right. And in the debate we showed that because we actually won the debate and managed to convince the Oxford Union that capitalism was responsible for the poor in Britain and on a world scale. But he has some heartening words for Cameron. He said the following: more than 50 colleagues, that's Tory MPs, were ready to move against the leader, and a coup was probably highly likely because the only other alternative was a zombie parliament. Well, I thought it already was, by the way. This is proof, if proof was needed, of the chronic weaknesses of this government. It could be brought down if Remain triumphs in the referendum. It wasn't just us who saying this, but John MacDonald, in the debate in the Daily Mirror, which hosted by the Daily Mirror, said the one advantage of Brexit is that if it triumphs, then David Cameron will be defeated. As one of his own MPs said, he would be toast. Why then are the summits of the Labour movement and unfortunately trade union leaders and unfortunately Jeremy and John throwing a lifeline to the hated Cameron and Osborne government by supporting Remain? This is at a time when the wheels are coming off the Cameron-Osborne chariot. They are besieged on every front, with the economy heading for another crisis, probably on the scale of 2007-8, the biggest trade deficit since 1948, a rise in unemployment particularly affecting our young people, the catastrophe of housing in London and the other major cities, with millions suffering at the present time, a revolt on wages, which is reflected in a whole number of strikes. A mini-strike wave is taking place at the present time. A reduction of wages by 8% on average since 2007. The government is on the rocks. It's already, according to the Financial Times, performed 20 U-turns, major U-turns and partial U-turns. And it's particularly vulnerable on the issue of the EU because of the programme that it's putting forward. We believe, unfortunately, and we support Jeremy and John in their struggle against the right in the Labour Party. Unfortunately, they've made a mistake in opting for Remain, probably against their instincts. We were together, that's those of us who are old enough, in 1975 when I spoke in Trafalgar Square, a tremendous demonstration of the Labour Party Young Socialists. I was in the Young Socialists then, I had hair, I was young at the time. And that was within the Labour movement that this campaign was conducted. Now, unfortunately, Jeremy is trapped behind enemy lines. The truth is the Labour Party is not yet irrevocably broken from the Blairite influence. It remains in a halfway house position. The tens of thousands who rose up to support Jeremy's call for sweeping away austerity and opening the road to socialism, they're looking for a lead at the present time. That's why TUSC, while supporting Jeremy, has fought against those who are opposed to him at local and national level, particularly in carrying through cuts against working people who've already had enough. Here, comrades, was a golden opportunity to shipwreck the Tory government, widen the splits within the Tories to Grand Canyon proportions and precipitate a new general election. On those grounds alone, it will be incumbent, I believe, on the leaders of the movement to come out against the EU. Apart from what Paul has eloquently described, This is a neoliberal vehicle against the interests of working people. Even more nauseating, quite frankly, is the spectacle of Harriet Harman out in Asda campaigning with Cameron. Similarly, Sadiq Khan, it was vilified. It was attacked on racist grounds in the mayoral election by Cameron sharing a platform with him in the last period. John MacDonald correctly attacked Sadiq Khan. So he's going to be used as a vehicle of the Blairites to switch things towards the right, he hopes. In his election campaign, Khan stated that London needs more billionaires. There's 140 of these creatures already here in London. There's more billionaires in London than any other major city in the world. We don't need more millionaires. What we need is rent control for the dire housing situation today. Security of tenure, like I enjoyed in my flat in Islington in the 1960s. The requisition of all empty properties. Over 50,000 empty properties in Britain today. 11 million, by the way, throughout the EU itself. It's quite wrong for some of the trade union leaders to give the impression of trying to organise a trade-off to force back what the Tories what Cameron is trying to attack, trade union rights, in exchange for Remain. That actually happened in the last couple of weeks. And Frances O'Grady was at it yesterday, where she said the EU enormously helps workers, and says that we will lose £38 a week if the British people vote to come out of the EU. What a load of tosh. How brilliantly Paul has explained that the EU is a vehicle of neoliberalism. As a result of the pressure from the EU, 71,000 different properties will be privatised in Greece in the next period as a result of the pressure. Even the beaches are down to be sold off. No, let us be clear. From its inception, the so-called common market was a boss's club. One of the reasons why it was put together is because the European capitalists were compelled by the development of their system to try and unify Europe. That's bring together the productive forces, science, technique, the organisation of labour, and the giant production runs of the big monopolies, which had outgrown the nation state. But it's impossible for capitalism to unify Europe. We are not narrow nationalists. We stand for the unification on a big scale of working people. We appeal to the working class on a class and internationalist position. Only through solidarity and socialism and the combined actions of the working class of Europe could we establish a real unity, a confederation of socialist states on a European scale itself. Our opposition is opposition to all capitalist forces. We will never block and stand on the same platform of the right wing, of share a platform with UKIP. We're absolutely opposed to the nationalist, jingoistic and racist campaign that is being conducted at the present time. But we need to convince working people that there is a way forward by standing up to the EU. The EU is in reality an anti-worker construction. Only by fighting in this way will we begin to change the situation of working people. This is a golden opportunity for us to hammer home the need for change. What we have really, in the arguments being put forward, is a kind of version of lesser evilism. You had Paul Mason, who made an excoriating attack, for instance, on the EU. And then he concluded by saying, but I'm not going to vote for out, I'm not going to vote for leave, because of two words, Boris Johnson. I think it's entirely wrong to pose things in that way. What would be the case if the Labour movement or the Labour Party in the beginning accepted that argument, that we would be in favour? Don't break from the Liberals, was the argument, because you'll let in the Tories. No, the pioneers of the movement said the head and tail of the same coin. We knew it, we need a new way out. We need a distinct organisation and party of the working class itself. The tasks are very simple. We oppose the EU. In or out of the EU, we're still on a capitalist basis. It's only by fighting for socialism and taking that message to all corners of the labour movement. I'll finish on this point. I was at the PCS conference last week. It was a very good conference. And in that conference they said, we are prepared to affiliate to the Labour Party, but not yet. Not while the civil war is unresolved. We'll give all the support we can to Jeremy and John, but no money to the Blairite machine. It's only if we attack and approach things in this way can we prepare a movement in Britain for socialism and a movement in Europe for a socialist United States of Europe. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, and I'll now hand over to Mick Cash, the General Secretary of the RMT.
Thanks very much. I hate these things, by the way. They're a bit of a distraction. Can you hear me without it? No, you can't. All right, I'll have to use it then. Thank you very much, no. Not a lot, but there you go. Can I say thanks very much for the invite to address you tonight, and I make a point from the RMT from minute one, day one, that we as a union have been opposed and opposed to the EU since 1978, and been seeking a referendum since 1978. It's been a long while coming, but at least we got it. I mean, the last time we had a referendum I was only 15 years of age, I didn't get a vote. This time I get a vote. So it is a glorious opportunity for the whole of the working class in this country to have a say in what future they're going to get, whether it's in Europe or out of Europe. One of the things I would make a point about, and it's one of the frustrations that I have, and I've said it before and I'm going to continue saying it, the shape of the debate so far is very, very worrying, because what we have is a situation where people turn around and say it's about immigration, it's about migration. That's what Europe's about, and actually it's wrong. And I make the point that for me, as a son of two Irish immigrants who used free movement to come to London in the 1950s, met here, got married here, brought up 7 children over here, that actually this isn't a debate about migration and immigration, because immigration and migration, as far as I'm concerned, has been a positive for this country and for workers. And we need to make that point. We need to make that point. But the reality is this: our policy since 1978 has been based on the fact that we see, as a trade union, and for our members, that the EU, the European Union, not Europe, but the EU, as having a negative impact on the industries that our members are employed in, and the industries where workers are employed in this country, and actually on workers. That's what we see as. There are a lot of people going around these days and talking about we've got all these workers' rights. And there was a time, there was a brief period, and you referred to it, scratch from the table, where we had a situation where they called it the social chapter, I think, and we had the laws and whatnot, where there was some benefits that come out of the EU. Those days are gone. They are long gone. And those who keep arguing about we're going to lose workers' rights, we're going to lose benefits, we're going to lose everything if we come out of the EU, are living in yesterday's world. They're living in a time warp. It ain't there anymore. Europe has moved on. It's moved on to a neoliberal agenda. It's moved on to a pro-privatisation agenda. It's moved on to austerity. It's moved on to actually deregulation, which is all to the disbenefit of ordinary working people. And that's the message we've got to get across, and we should get across. Equally, should make sure that we all make the point that we're pro-European, we're pro-international solidarity, but we're anti-European Union. Because it is a mechanism, it is a body that is for the rich and the elite and for the powerful, not for ordinary working people. A clear message we need to get across is Europe, EU, the EU is not working for us. And us is us. And we need to get that message across, because I think one of the problems we're getting is that the message around what the positives about actually leaving the EU and about actually where can we stand on our own 2 feet. Is there a better world without it? Is not getting across. And that's a dilemma that we've got because of moving into this debate about guilt by association. And some have heard me say this before. We're in a situation, I find it a bit bizarre, that I think you talked about, Peter, earlier on about, well, if David Cameron and Brendan Barber signed a letter talking about promoting the EU, it's okay. If Ed Balls and George Osborne and what was the other fella from the Liberals? Vince Cable get on a platform and say the EU is positive, we need to remain. That's okay. But because on the outside, on the Leave side, we've got people like Johnson, we've got people like Gove, we've got people like Farage, all right? There's guilt by association. That automatically, those who have a progressive alternative view, they're wrong. We are got the wrong argument because it's positive if you stand on a platform with Osborne, who's pursued austerity, and Cameron, who's just put an anti-trade union bill through. That's okay. But if you turn around and if you're in a situation where you're associated, and we're not associated, because we won't stand on platforms with all those crowds, then suddenly there's something wrong with that. And I think that's one of the debates, one of the difficulties we have on the left, and being progressive. But for us as a trade union, we have a clear view why we are opposed to the EU. We're in a situation where they're promoting privatisation of the railways, and that if, because of the fourth railway package, if we get a situation where the EU continue, that we will not be able to renationalise the railways, despite the fact that 70% of our people in this country want to renationalise the railways. We've got a situation for us as a trade union where we organise in the seafaring industry, where 470,000 seafarers operate in EU waters, but only 40% are EU nationals, because the EU has protected our members both in the seafaring side and in the railway side. A situation where ferries, where our members are employed, the EU are dictating to governments. And the Scottish Government recently had to put out to tender the Scottish ferries, and they had to do it because the EU dictated it. And because we had to campaign against it, we got it remained in public ownership. But we should be in a position where Brussels dictate what we want. If we want public ownership, if we want nationalisation, then we should be able to decide that, not Brussels. Because there is a democratic deficit, and that's important in all of this. But the reality is this: there's a load of people out there saying we can. If we stay in the EU, we can change it. We can reform it. You've got 28 countries, including our own. 28 countries, including our own, who turn around and have to agree on a whole wide range of changes that we want to get progressive policies. So there you've got a situation where Jeremy Corbyn turns around and says, right, I'm the leader of the Labour Party, we vote him in 2020, and people are thinking about what happens if there's a vote now and which government's going to be in place. But say you do get a Labour government, a progressive government in 2020, and you want to have progressive policies. A bit like David Cameron did recently. Remember it? To get this referendum, he went and got 4 or 5 different items. I can't even remember what they were, but they're a fig leaf to get the referendum. And he turned around and he had to go around almost every government in the EU to turn around and start asking, can you please support me? A bit like Oliver Twist. Please, sir, can I have more? Wouldn't get it, didn't get it off him, because they would not give him the ability to turn around. Our Prime Minister, I didn't vote for him, by the way, but he was democratically elected, regretfully, wrongly, in my view, but he wasn't. But our Prime Minister had to go around and always get on his bended knees to every single Prime Minister, Chancellor in the EU to turn around and try and get a fig leaf of cover to get this referendum. Can you imagine Jeremy Corbyn turning around and saying, I want to end privatisation, I want to end austerity, I want to end liberalisation, I want to end deregulation. Can you please support me? How much is he going to get out of the EU at this moment in time? He will not get it. 500 million people live in the EU. You've got 28 governments, and there's not one of them are going to turn around and agree with our changes if we want a progressive UK. And the reality is this: if we do not vote to leave in 23rd of June, we're going to be in a situation where we will never get progressive governments and never get progressive policies. We will continue to see privatisation. We will continue to see deregulation. And that is why the EU ain't working for us. And that is why we've got to leave. And that's why we've got to make sure our members vote for leave, and workers across the country vote for leave. Thank you very much.